So today we're going to look at what I do as an embedded software engineer every day. Take you through my day, what my day looks like, what I have happening in my day, try to record some of the things, some of the conversations that I'm working on. For instance, right now, I like starting off my days just purely looking at my schedule, what kind of meetings. It is a Monday, so my meetings are much less usually on Mondays. I have one meeting today at around 2 o'clock. And then after that and before that, it's pretty much open. Mondays are also a little bit unique in my work schedule. I do usually take off for a couple hours in the afternoon because I have something I have to do for my daughter every single Monday. But then after that, I usually get on a little bit later at night to kind of just put in the last hour or two that I missed while I was gone. So looking at what we're starting off with this morning so far, our company is a very Slack heavy company. So I tend to not look at emails unless if there's something I actually am expecting to come in an email. I will browse through them eventually later in the day, but most people will just contact directly through Slack whenever something is needed, or if they have something that comes up that they want to discuss. So this morning we're starting off with a Slack discussion that's actually talking about testing of some hardware. On Friday we had found an issue that potentially has a bug with how we test our hardware. The goal right now is to give them a patch based on what we think will solve the problem, have them test it at the test station that found this issue, and then we'll meet after that to discuss if that is the proper solution and what else we may be able to do if there may be a potential other better solution. Aside from doing actual work, I don't have my coffee yet, and I love my coffee, and I usually don't have it first thing in the mornings during the week. Usually only on the weekends is when I make it to have it first thing in the morning. So I have to take a little break, go behind me here, and make my coffee. So what I'm doing right now is a code review. Going on that issue that we had on Friday, there was already some people starting to work on potential solutions, not knowing the actual root cause, but just trying some stuff. And once we figured out the actual root cause, I now have the code in front of me of the changes they were trying to make, and we're discussing those changes. But this is one of the hardest parts sometimes about my job. I love what I do. I love coding and problem solving and engineering. But sometimes when people are making changes, they don't know the code base as well. Maybe they've only been exposed to certain portions of it, or they don't think as much about design as like someone like I do, because that's part of my job, is designing the software and making things overall hopefully more stable and better. But they come in and make changes. Sometimes it's hard to have to tell them that their changes don't make sense, aren't gonna work. Maybe it completely not changes, but just makes a mess, if you wanna say that, of a framework that is already in place. One of the changes is kind of coming up with logic that already exists, so it just makes the code base a little messier because the person just doesn't know that that logic kind of already exists, just maybe in other forms. There's another change going in that because of the rates at which some of our code runs, because of that, another change they went in just doesn't quite make sense for what they're trying to achieve. I understand what they're trying to achieve, but what they're doing just doesn't, like I said, just doesn't quite make sense because the way our software is designed. Another change that they're trying to put in doesn't put much consideration into the fact that the interrupt priorities that we have running and the task rates that those are running at. The changes just don't put that into consideration. There is an edge case where some code could be running, and because the way the priority of the interrupts come in, another piece of code could come in and kind of mess things up, and then go back to executing the older code or the slower code that would kind of undo the changes that faster code was trying to put in place. We just have to discuss that a little bit further. Like I said, sometimes this can be hard because sometimes people don't like to be told that their code isn't right. They get emotionally attached to their code, and so they don't like to be told that something has to change or that something isn't gonna work, especially when they put time and effort and thought into it already. So, got to get back into that, finish up this discussion, and get them some code that they can test on the test setup that found this issue to see if it's gonna fix it. So we just made the final change that we're going to do for our first initial test. The change that we're doing specifically, since we're testing some hardware, there is a part where we are changing some states of some of the hardware, and it looks like when we change those too fast, it could cause potential issues. So we are actually adding in an additional cycle of the test because the test is running in a 1 millisecond cycle. A little bit of change in the behavior. There is another change that we are going to take a look at also applying, just so that if someone were to miss this in the future, there's another place in our code that we can kind of get all use cases kind of taken care of in one go. But the question is, that fix is a bigger and more important piece of code that we need to make sure that us making that change doesn't have any other downstream effects. Being able to know your code base and being able to know how, if you change one thing, how that might affect other things, and being able to study it is a big beneficial skill. So we're gonna go back, do some more of that. But this is my morning so far. So it's now 11 o'clock. It's time to join that meeting. So let's go in, discuss this issue, our plans of moving forward with fixing the issue, testing the issue, and then also some of those minute details that I had previously mentioned of things that may have been overlooked with some other ways that I saw on this pull request or merge request. We're also going to talk about those things on if we should still do those, and if we should, what's a better approach to actually fix those compared to what's currently being thought of. So, time to go to a meeting. Apply, check, and then evaluate that test run, because we do 3 test runs. It then also gets an additional millisecond because it has to evaluate the test results. Okay, sounds good. All right, talk to you guys later. We are wrapping up that call. It went really well. We got all of the issues figured out. We know we have one current thing to test. We have another branch we are going to test. We have a third branch we're going to test, and then bring all of those changes together on a 4th branch, because we need to make sure we know how each of those changes affect the system overall, so that when we bring them together, if there is an issue, we can at least understand how they each individually affected something. So it will make the debugging of the total changes much easier. So now we're 11:30, just before lunch. I might take lunch, grab some lunch right now. I'm going to work through lunch. I usually do on Mondays especially. And then we're going to get back to coding. So got a lot to do. So today we're eating this buffalo chicken, bacon, cheese, potato mixture. It's a recipe I found online on Instagram. Each serving is around 400 to 450 calorie with 40 something grams of protein per serving. Made 6 servings, so I'm gonna have this, water for my lunch, and then a little bit later this afternoon probably have a protein shake and a beef stick, actually, or a protein bar and a beef stick, something like that, as my afternoon snack. And that's typically what I try to keep my diet on right now, 2025. I've been really trying to dial in my diet, making sure I'm working out. I do kettlebell workouts, as you've seen, and man, this is delicious. So we also have to take our dog out today, obviously. That's another thing I do while at home. Sometimes during the day, she likes to just
sit back, relax, coming outside and being on the turf, getting that nice stretch in. She comes out and does that every so often, but
So I just got pulled into a meeting. I'm currently on it, and this is about some regulatory sort of things that we have to consider for certain certifications and stuff like that. Check to see what our software is like, and do we meet these certain standards and requirements from a software standpoint of like, are we reporting these things and whatnot. Another thing that ends up coming up every once in a while is people are talking about things, wondering about our software. What happens? They pull me in, and so that we can discuss it. So a meeting, which I'm not a fan of. We've now been in this meeting for a little bit, and I actually got to run because, like I said, Mondays are a little different. I have to go take my daughter somewhere and do stuff. So I'm gonna take this meeting specifically on my phone with my AirPods and go pick up my daughter from where she's at and go do a couple other things. So a little bit of work left for the day, but this is the rest for being at home. So it looks like we're not quite done for the night, done for the day. I was able to get quite a bit of work done at the session I had mentioned I had to leave, that I usually leave for a little bit earlier on Mondays for my daughter. But while I was there, some of the things didn't quite work as expected. I think it ended up being is I was expecting some people on the team use a 8-bit integer to return true and false. So instead of returning true and false, they return 1 or 0 instead of actually using a Boolean data type. And so I assumed, based on the name of the function, that it was going to return me either a 1 or a 0, because it was just a simple getter function for is something happening or is it not. But after it failed and I started investigating, I ended up finding this function actually is some bit masking and bit shifting and whatnot, and so it can come to a value basically anywhere between 0 and 16, kind of all depending on how the bit shifting and the values all work. I actually have to go in, fix that, figure out if I need to fix the function itself to actually return just a Boolean, or if I need a specific thing that this thing's bit shifting or not. It really should just be taking all of these 4 values, and instead of bit shifting and masking certain things out, really it should just be looking at each one individually as it kind of comes in and making a determination and just hey, is it set, is it not? And doing some or logic or and logic, depending on what we need, I don't fully know, just to make the API and the fact that you're saying get this sort of Boolean expression, even though it's returning it as a 0 or a 1. So I don't even feel like putting my microphone on to finish off the video. So I was just studying a little bit, as you saw, the logic behind this algorithm right here in this window. And there is a little bit of interesting stuff we're doing with this specific code base for this specific program that we're working on that is kind of unique, and it definitely is a cool concept. But because of that, we are actually, the logic here is actually taking into consideration 2 separate cores piece of information, and it's building a mask at runtime and doing an and against that mask when it's going to figure out if something should get ran. And what I think, and there's a potential bug there, because if one of the cores tells it, hey, I'm ready to go, let's run this thing, and then the other core comes in right behind it and applies its mask to the data that sort of the API tells it that, hey, we're good to go, it could potentially mask out one of the cores saying, hey, we're good to go, and masking it out completely on the second core because the second core is not ready yet. So I think we're running into a bit of an issue with that API and how it's ran, how it works. I'm gonna fix that tonight and give it a test first thing tomorrow morning. But that's where I'm gonna end the video, is with the nice bug fix in our code. Appreciate everyone for watching. If you enjoyed this sort of content with niching down a little bit into my job and into computer engineering, I plan on making more videos like this. So click that subscribe button because people say to do that, whatever. And have yourself a good day. See ya.